Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good evening, and welcome to our first show. This will be a panel discussion show, and it's my hope to record a new episode every 3 weeks or so. The show will be eclectic in nature, with us discussing international, national, state, and local events of interest, from politics, social issues, sports, religion, everyday life, covering all fields of human endeavor. Before we start our first show, I'd like to introduce the panel. Jeff Royce Opie to my far right, Royce to my immediate right, and I'm Bill Crane. Our first show will feature a couple of major issues and a bunch of quick hitters to get us warmed up. As we proceed forward, we'll have 3 or 4 major topics up first, and then plenty of other topics which will provide us with the grist for the mill, if you will. One other note, if I may, and that is the name of the show, The Bill Crane Report. This should not imply that it's about me or is all me all the time. I had to pick a name quickly, and that's what I came up with. As we mature and establish our identity, perhaps we'll change it, or perhaps not. We'll see. My wife has been a big help in suggesting some names for the show: the reprobates, the windbags, the gas bags.
She's getting close.
And the old farts. I think we'll probably dismiss all of those and come up with something a little better. And now, as Ed Sullivan used to say, on with the show. The first thing up for today is some thought given to the date August 6th. It's a very important date in the history of our country because it marks the day back in 1945 when we dropped the first atomic bomb on the Empire of Japan. It was delivered by the Enola Gay, and which was piloted by Colonel Paul Tibbets. And for you that aren't aware, Enola Gay was Paul Tibbets' mother's maiden name. The bomb was dropped on Hiroshima at approximately 8:10 a.m. local time. They took off from Tinian in the Northern Marianas in a B-29 Super Fortress. The flight was really without incident. The bomb was dropped and they returned safely. It looks as though on the mission, about 75,000 people, between 75,000 and they estimated a high of perhaps 120 perished at Hiroshima. We waited for the Japanese government to respond, and they didn't, because we had insisted on an unconditional surrender. When we received no reply, we sent another mission, piloted this time by Major Charles Sweeney, who has connections to the Massachusetts area and who retired as a major general or a lieutenant general, I forget which. I stayed in the service. And he flew a B-29, which he borrowed from a fellow officer in the squad called Boxcar. And he brought a bomb along called Fat Man. And that one was dropped successfully on Nagasaki, Japan. And it's estimated that 74,000 people perished at Nagasaki. These numbers are very difficult to come by. The Japanese aren't sure themselves. Who really knows how many people passed away? But it was an awful lot. Now I'm going to ask both you guys to comment on the question, was the U.S. justified in dropping these 2 atomic bombs? And before I do that, though, I just want to give you a couple of facts. 8 weeks before we dropped the atomic bombs, we fought the Battle of Okinawa. In Okinawa, we lost 18,000 men. The Empire of Japan lost 120,000. We had firebombed Tokyo on March 9th and 10th with 330 B-29s carrying napalm, which is jellied gasoline. The estimate on the people killed, 80 to 130,000. And yet, the Empire of Japan never blinked. This time, with the second bombing, the Emperor Hirohito overruled the military government and said, we surrender. That ended World War II. In World War II, we lost 407,000 men to military missions. Japan lost 2.1 million. Germany, somewhere around 5 million. And the Soviet Union, 8 to 14 million. These are huge, huge numbers. If we had not dropped the atomic bombs, General Marshall estimated we would lose 120,000 to 400,000 American lives in the invasion of Japan. We would also have set up a military blockade around the island to cut off all food and supplies. Millions of people would have starved to death. They held also 100,000 POWs, American POWs. They held them prisoner on the island of Japan. I'm sure once the blockade was set up, they would have executed our POWs. And by the way, some people really don't know this, but we had a third bomb. It was another Fat Man, a plutonium bomb that we had tentatively scheduled for August 19th. Then further downstream, 3 more were scheduled for September, 3 more for October. So we were in it for the long haul. Now, with all these facts, Dwayne, I ask you, were we justified in doing this?
I don't think we had any choice. In fact, the projected casualty rate that you got from your research, I've read things where some of the military people in 44, 45 said in the invasion come, it might be 1.2 million casualties.
Casualties, yeah.
Casualties.
Yeah,
that includes death and wounded.
Deaths. Oh, I think the casualty rate would have been all of that.
Oh yeah, easy, because they were going to arm themselves right down to pitchforks and sharpened bamboo stakes. And the fanaticism at that point, or the nationalism, was that if we lose, there's going to be no more Empire of Japan.
Well, yeah, and
they will let their whole country go.
The 120,000 deaths on Okinawa.
Oh, that proved right
we
there.
only took, I believe now, I don't want to overstate this, but we only took about 15 prisoners. 120,000 Japanese died.
Yeah.
So they weren't going to give up. You're absolutely right about that.
Absolutely not. If you go back to Okinawa, that was the first time that we ever saw the kamikazes come in mass, and that we didn't know how to defend against them. I had an uncle that was on the USS Bunker Hill, and he got burnt pretty bad, and they lost about 800 men to a kamikaze. And it simply went right through the deck, right down into about the 3rd or 4th bay. And the fuel and everything was burning. Yeah. But there was so many ships that got hit at that point. And it just was a last-ditch effort.
Jeff?
I've heard a lot of arguments. This is a favorite one in high school history classes when they get to World War II. You know, should we or should we not have? What is our moral responsibility? Should we have maintained, albeit a blockade, some sort of sanction against them? It's argued with hindsight based on our values today and a lot of emotion. But what many people fail to look at is, as you mentioned, the tremendous loss of life in the fire bombings of Tokyo, right? But there are also the tremendous loss of lives in the fire bombings across Germany.
Dresden.
Dresden is a perfect
so.
example.
Yet, you know, the thing that I think makes people focus on this is rather than hundreds and thousands of planes and tens of thousands of bombs, one plane, one bomb, close to 100,000 people in each city. That's impressive. That was extremely frightening. And when people today, you know, think about that, you know, it's an emotional response to that tremendous devastation by just one machine.
It was the finality of it.
Very much. But it's hard when you're looking at things in hindsight to put yourself in the place of people who have been doing that fighting. As Americans got closer and closer to Japan, all right, the Japanese dug in more and more, and as you presented, we have the Battle of Okinawa to look at as a measure of what would happen if we tried to hit the beaches of the Japanese mainland. Casualties would have been astronomical, and we fought a long war already.
That's
Lost
exactly
a lot of
right, and I'm
people.
glad you're bringing
And
that up.
people, you know, people at home, enough.
You folks at home, we're talking about August 6th, 1945. World War II started on September 1st, 1939, when Hitler invaded Poland. Now, we did not get involved until December 7th, December 7th? Yes,
1941.
7th. I always get the 7th and the 8th. I get mind lock on that. We did not get involved until Pearl Harbor, until the Empire of Japan attacked us in a very cowardly fashion. We fought 4 years in jungles across the Pacific. We took lots and lots of casualties. I don't think there was a town in the United States that didn't lose some of its young men. 411,000. We lost the flower of a generation. We can't minimize that.
All you have to do is walk around the little town greens and look at the memorial.
That's exactly right.
Everyone has it.
Harry Truman, in hindsight, really worried about this, but he said it was the right thing to do. Roosevelt was prepared to do it. He had already given the go-ahead. I firmly believe we did the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, is it sad that we came to that impasse? Of course it is.
Of course it is.
You know, but the entire war is a sad commentary on our inability to resolve our problems. Our
You know,
conflicts.
when I first started doing research on World War II, the established number of U.S. deaths was 295,000.
Yeah.
Now, somehow by new math, we've arrived now at 414,000.
Yeah.
But the Russians have gone to an astronomical number.
It's millions.
But they killed a lot of their own people, too.
Yes, they did. Stalin was a tyrant.
You know, we talk about Hitler being a horrible man.
Well, I think Stalin
and I
was
mean,
just as
on
bad or
the
worse.
on the scoreboard up there, I mean, Hitler and Stalin are either 1-2. I mean, but Stalin was a brutal man. I remember reading his biography, and he talked about cleansing the staff of the military.
He assassinated and annihilated his officer corps.
Well, he did.
Top to bottom.
But you know what he told the guys, the Beria and those guys, the guys that were doing the executing? Make sure you kill more of them rather than less of them. Terrible, terrible person. But yet Russia suffered over 30 million deaths in World War II. It was a dreadful time. I can remember it. It's my first memories of World War II. I can remember, we had blackouts, we had food rationing, and we scrimped. My grandfather would go hunting on weekends, trapping, fishing during the summer, grow a garden. But he wasn't anything extraordinary. Everyone did that, and everyone pitched in. It was the last time America was united, I feel.
There was a real sense of nationalism at that
There
point.
really was. And we were involved in this long and brutal war for 4 years. We found a way out. We offered them the surrender terms. They rejected it.
Yeah.
I think we did what we had to do.
Like I
Which
said,
wasn't a surprise. At
Oh,
all.
right, yeah.
Like I said, I don't think we had any choice.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Now, we can begin talking about some other things. I might as well keep you right on the hook here with another sticky one, too. Capital punishment.
No, don't let us relax at all.
No, we had a fellow that they executed that took approximately 2 hours for him to pass from the scene. And the the judge who reviewed this case wrote, "Executions are brutal, savage events, and nothing the state tries to do can mask that reality, nor should we. If we as a society want to carry out executions, we should be willing to face the fact that the state is committing a horrendous brutality on our behalf." And this gentleman supports the death penalty. And he dissented from the Ninth Circuit decision to grant Wood a conditional stay of execution. The man was on death row from 25 years. He was on death row. And it took him 1 hour and 57 minutes to die. They are blaming this on the fact that the chemical companies are not willing to make the compound that instantly kills, or kills
It's
in a
stages,
controlled fashion where it knocks them out and then kills them. So I have 2 questions. How do you guys feel about capital punishment? Number 1. And number 2, what's wrong with the firing squad? A shot to the heart is as close to an instantaneous death as we know. How is that cruel or unusual? Jeff? I gave...
Okay, this is one I've gone back and forth with in my mind
Yeah, me
for a
too.
long time, and I'm still going back and forth. You can argue on several levels. I mean, economically, does it make sense to keep somebody on death row for 25 years?
That was the crux of the problem right there.
That's absurd. The cost to the taxpayer is ridiculous. There must be some way to move this process along much more quickly. Because here's the next argument. People will argue and they will amass mountains of data that, yes, it is a deterrent, no, it isn't a deterrent. And every time I read a paper from one side, I'm convinced. I read a paper from the other side, I'm convinced. All right? So it's really hard to tell, which way to go. The other aspect that really bothers me is, what if they're wrong? And they have been wrong.
Oh, they have been wrong, no question.
That scares me more than anything. The thought that somebody would be executed who is innocent. And it has happened. It is possible. We have released people from death row after they've done DNA testing. That is in the forefront of my mind when it comes to this question. And if I was really pushed, I'd have to say, okay, no execution based on the possibility of someone who is innocent being executed. As far as it being brutal, yes.
What if there is a tremendous amount of brutality in the crime? What if it's a particularly heinous crime and we can look at the DNA and prove in our own minds that there is only a 1/100000th chance?
If you have that kind of evidence, and you can assure that you have that kind of evidence in every case, then you have, a different question.
Yeah.
The problem is that you don't have that kind of evidence across the board.
No, and not only that, but we have evidence to the contrary, don't we? When we look at some of the shenanigans that went on in Boston
Yeah.
with the FBI of all people.
Absolutely.
And wrong people
Yeah.
were put in jail.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say that there are many times when, this was quite some years ago, I don't remember the age of the boy in Boston, maybe 10, 13 years old. He was abducted by two men, treated brutally.
Oh,
And when-
Bobby,
One
Bobby,
sat on him and
Right, they sat on him.
suffocated him.
was it
suffocated
little
Oh, yeah.
Bobby
Yes.
Sweeney
Yes.
or something
I mean,
like that?
at that point, I
They-
would have been willing to pull the trigger myself.
Oh, yeah.
But laws prevent us from doing that,
That's exactly
fortunately.
right. Yeah, yeah. See,
but-
someone like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So,
how
so
do we,
there's our emotional response to
how do we
these
structure a
horrible
law
crimes.
that says, well, all right, look, Bill and Jeff are going to sit on a special panel here, and Dwayne will be the chairman, and we'll be the ones that will decide who gets executed or not.
I think this
It'd be
is
a little
yeah,
loosey-goosey.
I-
It'd probably be good, but
I think this is a tremendous legal challenge because you have to make sure that this law works well across the board. For one thing, talk about representation. I mean, someone who's poor, all right,
Oh, well.
someone who's assigned a court lawyer, it may be a good, aggressive young lawyer, but it also might be somebody who sleeps through the trial and could care
well, I
less.
tell you what, you say it may be a good, aggressive young lawyer, but there's probably a hell of a good chance it's going to be some
Right,
kid right
right.
out of law school.
Right, or
that-
someone who just,
Yeah.
is, give me a few dollars, I'll take
Yeah,
these cases.
sure, because
I
I
don't care
can't,
what happens.
my practice has failed,
Right,
so
right.
I'll carpet sweep here and pick these up.
Right, so I think these are very important questions.
Yeah.
And they're when you face these questions, you have to decide then, well, the chances of someone innocent being killed, the chances of someone not receiving a fair trial, the chances of it being really second degree and not first degree.
It's a fine line sometimes between,
Yeah.
it's a fine line between second degree and manslaughter.
Yes, absolutely.
Dwayne,
Well,
what do you have to say about this?
I can't improve on what Jeff said on the
Yeah, this
morality
is-
or the
This is really
or
disgusting.
wrong.
I mean, Jeff is going to be the voice of reason
Yeah.
here. I can
No,
see-
no, it's just something I've wrestled with a long time.
I want to address the brutality.
Yeah. Well, you and I are red meat kind of guys.
That's right.
Yeah.
You got your NRA shirt on.
Yeah. Hey, I got to tell you something. You know what? Let me digress for just a moment. The NRA sends me stuff weekly, pleading for donate. Obama is going to take our guns away. Blah blah blah. All right, maybe it's true. Okay, but I can't donate every week.
Right.
So I draw the line. Now, if they send me an ad for something nice they're selling, and I like the looks of it, maybe I'll buy it, But this cost me $44.95. This is the Freedom 2014.
Top of the line.
Yeah, good shirt.
Okay.
But this leads into something else I had later on, but I'm going to go with it right now anyway. A major chain around here, when we had the World Cup bubbling over and the U.S. kind of doing all right, and all of that, this major chain. Now, I bought, my kids bought them for me, but they bought Red Sox championship golf shirts like this. They pay $40 for them, which,
Oh, yeah.
do you know that this major chain brought out a line of golf shirts like this for the USA in the World Cup? What do you suppose they charged? $90.
I was going to say 80 because that's a Patriots jersey.
I mean,
A special license jersey is $80, $90.
you gotta be kidding me. $90. my kids ever came up to me and said, "Dad, I want one of these," I would have wrapped them. You know, I mean, God Almighty. Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you, Dwayne. You were pontificating along brilliantly.
The brutality is what
Yeah.
I like to. First of all, the chemical injection. It's designed to, I guess, the first layer is the sedative to put them to sleep.
Yeah, numb you. Yeah.
And then it just goes on through the process
Yeah.
of. You're right. That's no different than a bullet through the heart. In fact, I think you're going to feel the injection more than you'd feel the bullet.
Yeah.
And but the problem with execution by firing squad is that it will destroy or very much upset the sensitivities of a lot of people.
Oh dear, well, we don't want that.
Well, God, we can't have that. But that's going to be why there's so much objection to it.
I know.
Some countries have public execution
Oh, yeah.
as an example.
Our friends the Chinese.
That's right. And the Chinese use it quite a bit today. You notice, for example, a recent example was the, I'm sorry, I do not remember the name of the group, but they're in eastern China.
Yeah, kind of a separatist
Yeah,
kind of
the
an
Muslim area
organization.
over
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
That went into the train station and
Yep.
stabbed these people.
Yep.
Well, here just the other day, they already executed 15 of them.
Yeah.
There was no
No appeals over there.
no, they didn't stay in,
Yeah.
in the prison for 25
Yeah.
years with attorneys and everything else, but they're gone.
Yeah. Except I don't think we want to emulate the Chinese.
No, I
legal
know we
system.
don't, but I'm saying
Yeah, their legal system is really right up to
But
snuff.
but your point's taken,
Yeah.
certainly.
Well, all right. And by the way, yeah, I'm kind of on your side, Jeff, on this. It would really bother me to think we executed the wrong person. But yeah, it's happened time and
Yeah,
time again.
it's not to say that I don't believe certain people deserve execution, but
Yep. Well,
We have to
I
protect those.
wrote an article some years ago about a bank robbery over in Needham. They captured the people. They sentenced them. And they also, they sentenced them to die, by the way. They were executed within a year. But they also, they had committed 3 robberies up on the North Shore. They were testing their technique. These were not the brightest bulbs in the drawer, these 3 that were involved in this. But they killed a guy. They may have killed 2 in a holdup. And the court system had arrested 2 fellows and sentenced them to death. These 3, one of the guys said, "Hey, by the way, just to clear the slate, we killed a couple of other people up in the North Shore in robberies." These 2 guys that had been sentenced were within about a month of being electrocuted.
Okay.
So, rush to judgment sometimes
Yeah.
really doesn't work. But
Yeah.
anyway, okay. Well, one of my favorite subjects has just arrived. And I don't know whether to compare Massachusetts' attempt to get legalized gambling underway as a comparison of 2 porcupines attempting to mate, or does it remind me more of Artie Shaw's great classic, Dancing in the Dark? But in any case, we don't appear to be getting this rocket ship up off the ground very quickly, and now we've turned to putting it on the ballot. Dwayne?
Oh, this
Let's
is a
say you-
subject that's dear and dear to my heart.
Yes, I know that. I know that. I
I
know
am
that
a
you.
frequenter of Foxwoods.
Yes.
Less so Mohegan Sun, but it's not the fact that it's gambling. It's the fact that you're trying to do something in the state of Massachusetts. We can't do much of anything. We can't get anything through the legislature. If we do, it's messed up. We have a reputation.
These are pretty strong words.
Well, look at
wow.
Look at what we do.
I know that.
We can. We'll take something as simple as ABC and we'll make it XYZ.
Look what
We'll
they
get done with it.
did. Look what they did. Was it last Wednesday night?
Yeah.
When they had
Precisely.
all the bills
Yeah,
that
so-
were backpiled. They quote, this is their words, they horse traded. So they got them all done before midnight. This is one heck of a way to run a railroad.
Some of these complicated bills, the legislators had sometimes 20 or 30 minutes to review it, and the thing is 30, 40, or 50, 100 pages long.
And not only that, but they also gavelled through a whole bunch of changes to the bill. And they just basically said to the members, shut up, you can read about it tomorrow, just vote. Now, what on earth?
Why should the state legislature be any different from the federal government, where I don't think anyone's read the 2,000 plus pages of Obamacare?
Absolutely not.
Why should it be any different?
I bet you Nancy Pelosi has sat down and read it.
Well, she'll tell you she did.
No, she just said we need to enact it to find out what's in it.
Yeah.
So,
Aside from the fog.
yes.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you totally, Dwayne. The monkey shines into the State House are enough to, it's embarrassing, really.
There's legalized gambling.
Is another story.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is the process
that we
of
go about it.
trying to get the rocket
Legalized
ship
gambling
up
in
off the
itself, the people that are absolutely against it, probably engage in most of them every day. They buy a lottery ticket, they do this, they that, but they don't look at it as that's gambling. But it is.
ground. Of course it is.
Only thing is, if a casino tried to give the odds that the lottery gives, they'd be out of business.
Well-
it would be illegal in most states.
Again, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So,
The main point is I think it is a regressive form of taxation in that it affects the poor much more
but it's
than the
voluntary.
affluent. You're right. Oh, it is.
It's not like getting your tax bill in the mail.
Oh, I know. I agree with you totally. And by the way, there's nobody like going to the ponies any more than this boy. But watching this happen, it's the old saw, follow the money. And you watch them arguing and fighting about this location, that location. I mean, you can't tell me there is a really much worse place to put a casino than in Revere.
Oh, or Everett. I don't
Or
care.
Everett.
Either one.
Either one.
What are their promises that they make when they say, okay, we're going to put a casino here and this is going to happen? All good things, right?
Yep.
Have you taken a look at Atlantic City lately?
I have. 1/3 of the casinos are now closed.
Are going to be
Yes.
closed by the
What great
fall.
things have they done for the city of Atlantic City?
Well, they
I'll tell you what
haven't
they
done
have
much.
done. I'll tell you what they have done, though. The casinos supply 40% of Atlantic City's budget. Had the
Yeah.
casinos not been there,
Then we
15 or 20 years ago, Atlantic City would have drifted out to the sea and would not be there.
most of Atlantic City might as well
Would have been
still
gone.
drift out to the
Yeah,
sea.
but it's still
though.
there.
It's still there, but it's
But
it's a mess.
just, they could not, I'll tell you what happens with casinos. Everybody looks at them as 100%.
yeah.
They are either going to do everything or they didn't do everything, so they're going to do nothing. They're not that. They are a business.
Absolutely.
If they contribute 15% of the budget or 20% of the budget, that's what they contributed. They're not going to come in and contribute the whole thing. And a casino in Massachusetts, if we ever get one, is going to add some dollars to the coffers. It's not going to solve all the ills, all the problems. The casino was not designed to do that.
I don't think, I can't answer for all people who are against the casinos, but I think some of them argue that casinos also have a negative impact on communities. And some of the people who are against that, you know, that is
Except
their
if you go down
argument.
and look at Tunis in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Took one of the
Yeah.
lowest, poorest thing in the nation and brought them back on their feet.
If they supply most of the jobs
Yep.
in the community and they don't bring people in from outside to fill those jobs,
Well, that's another thing. You
Okay.
look at Atlantic City.
yeah.
Okay, now Atlantic City said we're going to need X thousands of people. Atlantic City couldn't supply those people.
That's right. So they took them from the outside.
You can only get so many people that can make beds or wash dishes.
Right.
Dealers have a high degree of math ability. All of a sudden, they weren't finding the background to use it, so they had to start busting them in from Atlantic City and New York City. I don't know. It's locations are terrible. Just you couldn't pick two worse places.
No.
You know, they immediately dismissed Milford,
Yeah.
which, according to my map, has access to 495, Route 9, 295. I mean, you've got roads. You could build it up there without having people to drive into the city, into Revere, or into Everett.
I'm not sure how long it would take me to get to Everett or to Revere. I've never been to Suffolk Downs.
Oh,
I've been
I
by
have.
it,
I have.
but
I
I'll
think
still
it'd
drive
take
the 70
you-
miles to Foxwoods.
Yeah, I think it'd take you about an hour to get there.
Yeah.
From-
Yeah,
It'd
but-
take me a little more
without
than-
traffic.
Without traffic, yeah.
But
Without
if the
traffic.
traffic,
Oh, forget it.
yeah.
Forget it. What's the main competition with if they put casinos up in Revere or Everett? What's the closest competition? Foxwoods?
Foxwoods.
Yeah.
Probably Twin Rivers
Twin Rivers.
in
Yeah.
Lincoln.
And there's a
Rhode Island.
couple of small casinos up in Maine.
Yeah, Maine's got a series of them.
And by the way, when Maine passed their bill, they had
was there,
gambling.
they
They had
started?
gambling running about
Yeah.
30 days after that.
None of this
Yeah.
fighting back and forth and arguing and
So I
suing each
guess
other.
so.
and-
My question now is, and this is something that really bothers me, but every time we have something like this, are we going to turn to the ballot? Are we going to turn to initiative petitions because the legislature has done a miserable job of passing a bill that's workable? Are we going to put it on the ballot? I mean, is that a really good way to run a...
No, you're going to end up like California with all these propositions.
Right.
They get to an election, they got 200 propositions on them.
You can put something on the ballot, and the people vote a certain way, and then the court can just turn around and change it.
Yep,
Well-
that's right. It doesn't
Well,
matter.
Which
guess-
they
guess
do,
what?
which is
Here in
fascinating.
Massachusetts, the legislature in the next session can change it.
Right. So, I really don't know. I mean, there's I don't know. The whole question of gambling bothers me basically because of the placement. And it's not a question of gambling itself, because as you say,
It's a
we have the
personal
lottery.
choice.
We
Sure.
gamble. We gamble
Yep.
all the time. I lived in Oklahoma for 7 years, and I always, I heard at least 3 or 4 times on the news how the local sheriff's department raided the local Catholic church for
having a bingo game.
That's right.
Okay. I was just looking for our next subject here, and I suppose we can tackle this one. Legislators agree to juvenile parole fix. If a juvenile is convicted of meditated murder, he could be granted parole after 25 to 30 years, while those found guilty of murder with extreme atrocity or cruelty would be eligible only after 30 years. This is a compromise that the state legislature has reached. Well, in the ensuing days, this young man who was arrested for slaying the school teacher and doing despicable things to her body, attacked another lady,
Yeah, one of his workers.
workers in the facility he was being held in. I'm confused. Should we really be worrying about his parole date? Or should we be more concerned about keeping him under lock and key until he demonstrates that he is straightened out?
I think you can't put a time on it. There has to be an adjudication of some type of how much of a danger to society is he or she. But
Jeff?
Yeah, it's ad hoc. It's going to depend on the crime, the age when he committed it. I don't have the background to answer that question really. We tend to go to psychologists, psychiatrists, for answers to these questions, and their opinions, differ widely.
Are all over the place.
They're all over the place. My feeling is the protection of society should be number one.
that's right.
And I would rather err toward the protection than that individual's freedom for the crime he committed.
I agree with you. I agree totally. Here's an interesting news note. Our Senator Markey, hit the news this week or last week. He is the #1 recipient of donations from lobbyists. Of all the senators
That's a shocker.
and representatives in Washington, he's in first place. And you know what? It's not even close. He brought in almost $611,000 in contributions from registered lobbyists over the last 18 months. Speaker John Boehner pulled in $422, and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell $373. Are we in danger now of becoming, of our legislators becoming, well, I don't know, captive is probably not a good word for these super PACs, but being led by these super PACs?
I think we've always been in danger of that.
I do too. When there's money involved, it's
I
always
don't
been
think
there.
it's ever been any different. If you read the history of Congress, congressmen were more or less owned by various interest groups. Because, well, a primary example of this would be if you've ever read that four-volume set on Lyndon Johnson. Here's a man whose moral was the ballot box. And I think more than ever, that has become the status quo of many a politician. Their moral is the ballot box. That's all that counts, is getting in there.
So they're really not interested in you and I. They are interested in being reelected.
They may start out being interested.
Well, yes, interested in
self-preservation.
our participation at the ballot box.
Right.
But they quickly morph into a position where they're looking at reelection.
They're looking at reelection.
They're falling in love with the power, the perks. By the way, let me interrupt you for just a second. I promise I won't do that again.
It's quite all
I
right.
think it happens.
But Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, when she was elevated to that position, commandeered an Air Force 757, which she had fitted out as her personal vehicle for her numerous trips back and forth to the West Coast. A 757 with a crew.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
absurd.
It is kind of interesting that she got away with that so
That's what I
quietly, isn't it?
it is, because I'm not convinced that the newspapers do a particularly good job of following through with some stories like that. I think it depends on who it is that stubs his toe. We have, by the way, all of my material comes from either the Globe or the Herald. The two newspapers we have here in town, and I get tidbits out of the Wall Street Journal too. The Herald is almost unreadable. It drives me nuts, but I read it because I have to get the sports. The Globe is a lot more articulate and covers a much wider variety of subjects every day.
That they do, but one of the problems I have there is I get dizzy.
Well,
The spin.
well, their bias is very, very easy to see. So you know, that's it. We're trapped with these two rags.
Yeah. Globe rewrites the news by their headlines.
Yeah, talk to me about it. I saw a couple of beauties the other day. I wished I'd cut them out. But here's another little news flash right here. Rolls-Royce sales boom in the U.S. The price starts at $263,000.
I'll take 3.
And they sold 1,968 cars in the first half of this year compared to 1,475 in the same period last year. That's a 33% rise in sales. The luxury market is growing at the high end, they say, and we are delighted to be part of that, said a company spokesman. We get a preponderance of them here in the U.S. By the way, they'll paint it any color you want. Now, this is really good. A fellow walked into one of the showrooms with his wife's favorite pink lipstick and asked for a Rolls in that shade, and they built it for him.
Of course.
Yeah.
That kind of money.
Now, they also have V12 engines that get about 2 miles to the gallon, but they go 200 miles an hour. Well, the Bentley does anyway. Is this insanity, or am I crazy?
Well, I think we look at that different. The three of us here see an automobile that should be relatively comfortable and relatively dependable. That is status.
I knew there was a word for it. Thank you, Dwayne. By gosh, by golly. Yeah, well, you ever saw my fleet of cars? I got a 97 Buick, a 99 GMC pickup,
That get land yachts out there.
and a 2001 Mercury. I don't believe in these new cars. I mean, it seems to me that an automobile should be something you walk out and you put the key in it,
Yeah,
and it starts. And if the heater works, and the radio works, and the windshield wipers works, what the hell else is there?
Can I play devil's advocate?
Sure,
Yes,
go ahead.
please, by all means.
Maybe we're rationalizing because of our position in life.
That's what I said. We look at a different perspective.
Hey, I mean, if we block this enough, you know, we'll feel okay about ourselves. It's a beautiful car.
There's no question.
It's absolutely beautiful. And right now, I think it's, you know, from my viewpoint, my perspective right now, it's ridiculous, a waste of money, a status symbol, you know.
I've heard that before.
But if I were Bill Gates, I mean, I don't know if Bill Gates has a Rolls, probably not. But if I had that kind of money, would it really matter to me?
No,
I mean,
because the money wouldn't mean anything. That kind
you
of
know, it would be a
That's all
drop in the
relative at that
bucket,
point,
and it would be
yeah.
a nice car to have. And particularly if I'm doing philanthropic things with my money, you know, I could say, well, you know, this is fine. I've worked hard for this. I've earned this.
Yeah.
So our perspective would be perhaps totally different.
Yeah.
It's like
I guess, though, you know what? I'll buy off on that. You're right. The point that I was getting at, and I very poorly framed it, by the way, I must admit, the 200 mile an hour, and it's not governed.
Yeah.
Now, and we allow a fellow buys that car, okay, brings it home, puts it in the garage. Junior comes out, he's 17, he's had his driver's license for 2 weeks, and says, Dad, I finally got a date with that hot blonde. I have the keys to the Rolls. Yeah, when are you going to bring it back, Eddie? Tonight, Dad, tonight. Yeah, well, be careful with it. And he gives it to him. Now, that kid is going to get behind the wheel of that machine that's capable of 200 miles an hour. I just don't think that's a good idea.
It's not a good idea, but what if you have a Corvette in your garage. That's a much cheaper car, but could also do 200
Yeah, I don't think
miles an
Eddie ought to
hour.
be driving that either.
Right,
Yes,
right.
I-
What
He'd
if
rather take that out with his hot date, I'm
Yeah.
sure, than the Rolls.
Well, what if my wife gave the keys to somebody with her little Corolla and maybe do 95? You're still going to kill yourself if you wrap it
Yep.
around a tree.
Well, I think your point is that the temptation is just that
Yeah.
much greater. Yeah.
See, I really think that cars should be governed at 75 or 80 miles an hour, and that's it. You just can't go any faster than that. But
Well, you can
90% of the audience, I'm sure, is saying,
look at these,
get that cowboy off the air. You know, what's he, nuts?
yeah, the Lamborghinis and the
Yeah.
Ferraris and the Lotuses.
You know, I can honestly say, Dwayne,
I'd
right
like
here,
that
I'm
one
going
of
to
them.
confess this right in front of television land. I have never watched a NASCAR race.
Oh, okay. I used to have tickets to them.
Yeah, just watching cars go round and round and banging into each other.
But it's a lot more than that. We'll discuss that.
Yeah. Just doesn't really do a lot for me. I wanted to, yeah, what's the rush to judgment? Dwayne, earlier we had a conversation and I asked you for some of your inputs, and you said profiling is okay.
Absolutely.
Expound on that if you would, sir.
Well, the FBI have profiled for years with, say, a mass murderer. You know, they sometimes get pretty close. There's profiling for a reason. We don't profile just to profile. It might happen here and there, but you know, profiling. Well, let's go on to this thing with the air safety. There are certain people that are prone to be terrorists or look like terrorists, and there are people that don't. Now, this could change, and they're going to play on the fact that some don't, but some do. I mean, if you go to Israel, and what I read there's this, if you look the terrorist part, they're going to strip you before they let you get on a plane. They don't have much problem there anymore. Here we don't dare do anything.
I know.
We got to take every third person or every fifth person, and if we get lucky,
Yeah.
we'll get somebody.
Yeah, but we cannot take someone based on their appearance if it falls into a group that we have to handle carefully.
That's very true. That's why we can't profile in this country.
But we do it nonetheless.
We do it, yeah, absolutely.
And it saves lives every day. Jeff, do you have any words of wisdom on this subject?
Devil's advocate again, and not because I think there's in general anything wrong with profiling. I realize it's a necessary thing to do to protect people, particularly when we're talking about flights. There just doesn't seem to be any way around it. I'm thinking of a colleague of mine, who was from Iran. He was a vice president of the university there, fluent 4 or 5 languages. An excellent, excellent teacher. There was an event in Boston. It was crowded, and he was pulled aside by a policeman and questioned rudely. And he took extreme offense at that. You're going to run into these problems.
It's going to happen.
You have people who are given sort of carte blanche to, you know, if this guy looks like this, you know, stop him. They have no finesse about them and poor judgment, you know, and questioning skills. That's a problem. That's where we run into a lot of
You're
this
absolutely
trouble, I
right.
think.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's you know, profiling is an unfortunate consequence of the situation we find ourselves in, but that doesn't mean that you know, we can't make an effort to handle it much better than we do in
We
certain
do.
circumstances.
But some of the people doing the checking at the airports are high school dropouts.
Yeah,
And they're
well,
being paid
that's another
$11.25 an hour.
That's a whole story. That's a whole
Yeah,
program.
yeah. All right, quickly, is it going to be possible for Zanarov, well, you know who I mean, the the bomber at the marathon, is it going to be possible
can't
for
say
him
his
to
name
get
either.
a fair trial in Boston?
Yes. As fair as you can get any place.
Yeah,
Jeff?
yeah.
Really?
He's just too newsworthy. I don't think it would make any difference.
It doesn't
he
matter where
is.
you locate today. With mass media, the people in Minnesota know just about as much as we do about what happened.
I don't think he's going to be able to get a fair trial anywhere. I think he's tried and convicted already. His face has been all over the news. I don't see how he could possibly get a fair trial. But nonetheless.
Well, as you said, as fair as can be expected.
Yeah, right. Now, I suppose we'd be remiss if we managed to get through this show without a quick discussion of Market Basket and the goings-on there.
I can imagine going back to business school today, the studies and the discussions that must be generating. I mean, it's a plethora of material.
Yeah.
How not to run a company or
Dysfunctional family.
dysfunctional
I
family.
mean, it's madness.
Employee loyalty that we've hardly ever seen before.
Never.
That's very surprising.
Yeah.
It
That's
is. It really
amazing
is.
to me.
Here's people that are putting their jobs and their lives
I thought they'd.
on the line.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
their
absolutely.
lives in the fact that they could be starving
Yep.
tomorrow. And they're backing RDT all the way. And I think it's magnificent, by the way. I stopped up to Market Basket up in Bellingham, and I went in, and an older fellow was sort of dusting off shelves there, and he had a badge on, and he gave me a dirty look. And I said, hey, I just stopped in to see what's going on. I said, I am with you guys all the way. I said, good luck, and I shook his hand. And you know, in that store, that was one of their busy times.
Yeah.
They had, I believe, 13 cash registers across the front of that Bellingham store. They had 9 of them manned. 3 of them had a customer.
We were driving up to Maine a couple weeks ago, and no, it was just weekend passed quite a few Market Baskets empty.
Yeah.
Just
I
a
meant
few
to ask
cars
you
and-
too, by the way. I like to change subjects here in midstream. Whereabouts in Oklahoma did you live?
Well, I was in Stillwater. I was attending Oklahoma State University then,
Huh.
the Ag School.
There's another bit of the puzzle we can put right away, but I'll tell you, that's great. I like Oklahoma.
No, so did
Yeah.
I. I liked it very much.
Yeah, I like the people.
I
I
like the people
yeah.
especially. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been in 47 of the 48 states, and now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a sad moment. We have to say goodnight. I hope you've enjoyed our first little get-together, and I hope that you'll mark on your calendar the next time we're on TV, and we certainly will appreciate it, and enjoy us while you can.
We'll take some of these subjects in greater depth.
Oh,
at some point.
much
This is-
greater depth. And I'll promise you have a better plan next time, but also enjoy us while you can. Because I have a hunch NBC or CBS is going to be picking us up and shipping us right down to New York. So enjoy while you can.
Probably the time we
Thank
get home
you.
tonight.